hi, everyone, and welcome again to the Musical Innertube. I'm Don Rooney, and this is my pal, John Timpane. How are you, John?
I'm okay. Thanks very much, Don.
And John and I are going to, over the next few weeks, talk to some people that are interesting and have stuff to say other than the stupid stuff that John and I usually have to say. And John is very, very, very familiar with today's guest. John, why don't you tell everybody who he is?
Well, I will, as long as I don't have to talk about intimate details. I mean, we obviously are very intimate, and it's a little embarrassing to be having to talk about things like that on
X-nay on the Eepsley.
Well, that's great, Don. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me intense and spasmodic pleasure to introduce Mr. Mat Kaplan of the Planetary Society in Pasadena, and also a really great and beloved college radio chum of ours. Matt is an expert on what goes on in the sky. And he's also the producer and host of a show we really love here at the Innertube called Planetary Radio. And Matt's going to talk to us a little bit about using the night sky as an entertainment option for those nights during the coronavirus pandemic when there's nothing going on, or even when there's not a pandemic.
Yeah, we figured since everybody was stuck at home, we would give them something else to do, and stargazing might be a good thing to do. Right, Matt?
I couldn't agree more. Hi, guys. It's great to talk to you.
Hey, how weird is it that you're not in your own podcast today, Matt?
It's delightful. I won't have to edit this one. I won't have to do any post-production. I won't have to post it anywhere. It's lovely. You just ask me whatever you want, and I'll just be here smiling.
The easiest place to start is, Matt, I'm sitting around in my home, and I'm bored out of my mind because we've been quarantined for months and months and months, and somebody says, hey, the skies are going to be clear tonight. Let's go out and do some stargazing. First of all, can you do really good stargazing from your own backyard, or do you have to go out where there's no light?
You can definitely do great stargazing from your backyard as long as it's nighttime. You can only see one star during the day, and it's a bad idea to look at it.
So there's your first piece of good advice.
Okay, very good. That's 12 hours of the day shot.
Can I just, before we talk more about the sky, can I just say to people that it is an honor to be on with the two of you in this sort of semi-fake live mode, because that's a first for me. Because if you go back a whole bunch of decades, John and Don did the Musical Innertube at the college radio station, KUCI in UC Irvine. And it was called the Musical Innertube. What else? And it was so funny that many of us, how funny was it? Many of us would just gather around outside the studio and listen to them doing what they did on the air.
We did have a huge audience. Right there I don't know about anybody listening to us on the air, but we had a huge audience right there in the studio.
We want to thank both of you for listening.
People could hear us off campus as long as, sometimes the coat hanger would fall over.
Yeah.
Covering 500 feet of Orange County.
And of course, we want to emphasize again, we want to repeat the story that at one point, we were introducing a musical interlude, and it came out Musical Innertube, and that's how the title of the show came around.
And the rest could have been history, yeah.
Listen, I'm just leaping out of my shoes to ask you this. I've seen it all in all over my social media, Twitter, Facebook. There's this headline, and I just have to ask you. It says NASA finds alternate universe where time flows.
Which is backwards, yes.
I heard about this last night as we speak, because first there's a real headline in the most unreal media outlets available, like the New York Post and some stupid little local TV station in Florida, who picked up on this and totally misinterpreted it. I first heard about it from one of my brothers last night. I have 3. And then I got the same question from one of my daughters. I have 2. And it's BS. Basically, what happened was they took this very preliminary conclusion from this research that was not strictly speaking NASA research, but NASA helped fund it. And they've got this high-speed particle that should have been coming from above their heads, and yet it came from under their feet, actually from an instrument hung from a balloon, which they figured must have meant it came through the Earth first. And, one possible explanation for this, these scientists said, is that, well, it could be, that it came from this other universe where time flows backwards. Of course, they say the same thing about us. But the first clue to this is where you find the story in all those wonderful outlets, fine pillars of journalism that I mentioned and others. And today, of course, it is being debunked and poo-pooed, as I fully expected. Most physicists believe that the multiverse, parallel universes, it's possible, but that there's no way to get evidence of that in this universe. So is that even really science? Who knows?
If you can't do experiments on something because the physics there is not the physics here, and the only physics you can have here are the physics here, which seems to be the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you actually ever test that? It seems really forbiddingly difficult.
From my point of view, it's completely unfathomable. I have no idea what string theory is and all that. But as I understand it, quantum physics is taking that step in the direction of figuring out something like, are there parallel universes?
You're right. The concept of the multiverse, with an infinite number of universes being created at every moment as each one of us speaks or makes a decision or an.
We sound like a DC comic book at this point, But go ahead. Go ahead.
A bad episode of Star Trek.
Yeah,
it's possible, but how would you test it? I mean, they're separate universes. Maybe somebody will figure this out someday, and we'll find out, that there's a John, Don, and Matt doing this show in a parallel universe, and it might be a lot funnier. Who knows? But
it might be.
It's hard to test. I mean, don't feel bad about being lost in quantum theory, Don, because even the very best nuclear physicists. Oh God! And now, because I'm old, what's his name is escaping me. Feynman. The great Richard Feynman once said, if anybody tells you they understand quantum theory, they're crazy.
Yeah, I think the story goes that the evening after he first figured out the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, Werner Heisenberg is walking through a park late at night, and he's thinking to himself, the universe can't be that crazy, can it? And he thought for a moment, and he said to himself, yeah.
Maybe we should ask Schrodinger's cat, if he's still alive.
Yeah, I think he probably is. And he's dead.
And he's dead at the same time. Okay, let's get back to the stargazing thing for a second. Like I said, you can see stars from your back porch, I guess, and I guess the planets. I read all the time, little things that come up in USA Today. Oh, the planets will be in alignment and you can see them here and there, or a meteor shower will come. But the meteor showers are always like, you have to get up at 4:00 in the morning to see them. Is that pretty much standard?
It's unfortunate, but again, it's one of those phenomena that is best seen at night. And they do tend to come pretty late. I mean, it does seem like the peaks are never conveniently at 9 p.m. But they're worth it. They're worth staying up late for. If you catch a good one, it really is pretty awesome. And they happen all year long. We just had one. We just finished one that I heard was kind of a bust, but there'll be another one along shortly. There's so much to see up there, whether there's a meteor shower or not. I mean, right now, naked eye, you don't need a telescope, you don't need binoculars, although those are nice. You can just go out and stare at a clear sky at night, and there's so much to look at. I mean, it's almost over now, but Venus alone has been so spectacular for weeks and weeks. Just incredibly bright, far and away the brightest thing in the sky, except for the moon. And it's just been spectacular. And in fact, looking at Venus with the naked eye is really just about as good as looking at it through a telescope, because all you're going to see is a disk instead of a point, but you're not going to see any detail like if you pointed a telescope at Mars or the moon. But Venus has just been gorgeous, and now it's getting pretty close in the evening to the horizon when the sun goes down. So get out there quick. But it'll be back. It'll be rising in the dawn before too long, and you'll be able to see it.
One
there.
event that's been getting a lot of coverage out here is that Venus and Mars aligned right above the crescent moon and made a smiley face.
Yeah,
and it was in all the papers, and you're supposed to go out and I went out. I had to see it, but also I felt a little embarrassed. I mean, a little silly, but I did go out. I did want to see it, and there they were. The sky was happy.
So you felt silly. Imagine how the Martians felt.
Yeah, and imagine how silly they felt when they realized their atmosphere had escaped.
That's right.
Matt, do you listen to any great podcasts about the universe?
I listen more to science podcasts. There is a venerable podcast done by a couple of friends of mine called Astronomy Cast, which has been around forever. And I do recommend it. It sticks more with straight astronomy than we do, whereas we, on Planetary Radio, we talk astronomy, but we talk about space development and astronauts and people like that. In fact, I've got an astronaut on this week as we speak, Garrett Reisman, who helped build the Crew Dragon capsule at SpaceX that's going to be launching on May 27th, if all goes well. But yeah, Astronomy Cast is terrific. And then there are just a ton of great science podcasts out there that I love.
Yeah, let's talk about that launch for a second, because that kind of caught me off guard. I read about it a couple of days ago and said, "Oh, really? We're planning to go back up?" But this is just to the space station, right?
Right.
But it's part of getting ourselves in gear to go back to the moon and Mars eventually?
Yeah, it's kind of in line with that. Now, the real effort to get back to the moon and Mars, NASA's kind of keeping that close, and they're building that ultra huge, ultra expensive rocket called the SLS, the Space Launch System. They're having a lot of trouble building that. But the capsule that's going to take humans back to the moon, called Orion, is apparently doing pretty well. And that's kind of a collaboration between NASA and the European Space Agency. This is more commercial space or commercial crew, which is a great thing that NASA decided to do some years ago. And they said, hey, instead of just telling these companies, we want you to build something for us exactly this way, and if it starts to cost too much, you come back and we'll give you some more money. But it belongs to us. Well, now it's much more the model of almost like a rental car or an airline. The companies like SpaceX and Boeing are building these capsules. Looks like SpaceX will be the first to get people up in one. And they're going to sell the services to NASA, but the capsule belongs to the companies. And that's commercial crew. And this is a model that seems to be working pretty well for NASA. It's going to be very involved with getting people back to the moon. But this one, Crew Dragon, is an amazing thing. I mean, it's already at the Cape. It's being put on top of the Falcon 9 rocket, also from SpaceX, of course. And if all goes well, it will lift off on the 27th, and a couple of days later, it'll be at the space station and stay up there for a couple of days. And it'll be the first time American astronauts go to the International Space Station on an American rocket since 2011, when the space shuttle stopped flying.
What sort of ideas are we talking about of as far as going back to the moon? Why are we doing that? Just to do it?
I think the best reason to go back to the moon, to put, as the administrator of NASA likes to say, the first woman and the next man on the moon, excuse me, is because it's a good stepping stone to Mars. There are, Mars is really, really far. You didn't know that, did you? The moon is only a 250,000 miles away. Like for what, 400,000 kilometers. That's a pittance. That's nothing. I mean, that's a 2.5 day journey. Getting to Mars and having to spend some time there, because that's how orbital mechanics works, and then coming back, that's like a 2-year mission, where you could do an Apollo mission in, 6-7 days. And we got a lot to learn.
There just seem to be so many forbidding logistics to going to Mars, Matt. Like, how do you make your own food? How do you make your own fuel? even your own oxygen. It's a really long trip, and in a lot of it, it just seems like it's beyond our capabilities at the moment.
Oh, I don't know. I saw that documentary where Matt Damon lived on potatoes. So I think
Poop potatoes.
it's possible.
I had the chief scientist of NASA on recently, and he said the latest research says potatoes are really not the best choice for much of Mars. You'd be much better off growing asparagus. But then the NASA chief scientist said that he hates asparagus, and if he had to eat asparagus for 2 years, he would go outside and take his helmet off.
A leading scientist says that spinach is good for you, but his mother makes him eat it anyway.
Anyway, there are other reasons to go to the moon. There's water there, lots and lots and lots of water at the poles where the sun never shines, where the sun don't shine. And
you mean at Mars, not the moon, right?
No, the moon. The moon has
the moon. Really? There's
Mars
water at the moon?
Tons of water, millions of tons, possibly. They are now very confident that there is all this water ice, that is up in craters at the north and south poles of the moon. And because of the walls of the crater, the sun never hits this ice. And it just has been sitting there for a zillion years. And that water could be used for all kinds of things, to make oxygen to breathe, make rocket fuel to burn. There are people, actually Andy Weir, the guy who wrote The Martian, his last book, Artemis, was about a little community, a city on the moon, more of a village. And it really exists just for tourism, because they take people out to look at, the Apollo 11 Eagle. And the rich people pay a lot of money to do it.
I love the idea that there's a lot of water ice on the moon. It makes it sound like a giant 7-Eleven.
Hey, let's go up to the poles and get some strawberry slush. Yeah.
That's right. There's a few strawberry syrup.
Speaking of Martians, let's talk about that revelation a couple of weeks ago that the U.S. Military has photos of UFOs, and they released them. And these are, I guess, pilots seeing stuff in the sky as they fly that they can't identify.
It's true. I mean, have you seen the videos? They are pretty interesting. I've heard some other explanations, more down to earth, if you will, explanations of this. The artifacts in their infrared targeting or radar or something like that. But it is very strange. And, so I'm willing to accept that they're UFOs, unidentified flying objects. I'm not willing to accept that they're aliens, because I go by the motto, one of the mottos of one of our founders at the Planetary Society. Maybe you've heard of him, Carl Sagan, that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And it's interesting stuff. I mean, there is a lot of stuff flying around up there that isn't talked about, and a lot of it comes from the Air Force, or now the new Space Force, that that they don't talk about. Is that an explanation for this? I really don't know. But I can tell you that I know an awful lot of scientists who are so looking forward to finding life elsewhere, whether it's Mars or on a planet or going around some other star. These people are not hiding life, much less intelligent life, from anybody. They want to find it more than anyone on Earth. And it's just that, you need extraordinary evidence. And maybe there'll be an explanation for this stuff. I don't know.
So we used to have a friend of the family, Phil Morrison, who, as Matt will know, is one of the guiding lights for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, the effort to comb the universe for a signal that might be from another civilization. And Philip Morrison once said to me that, first of all, he was totally persuaded that there are other intelligences and civilizations out there just in our galaxy. That's all we're talking about is the Milky Way, because beyond the galaxy, the mind fails. But he said there's probably about 4,000 of them. But the problem is, this is probably one of the hardest things we've ever done, one of the biggest things we've ever done, and we might not be looking for the right thing or in the right place. And so really talk about things that are difficult. That's really one of them.
It is. And they keep trying, thank goodness. It could be that maybe the aliens' internet runs on neutrinos and we're just not paying attention. Maybe they're using gravity waves, and we're just beginning to be able to detect those. Who knows? But they keep looking in visible light and in radio frequencies because it's worth it. And, it's a long shot. But if we were to find that we were not alone, that somebody else out there has something to say to us, it would shake the foundations of society, I think. And then again, maybe not. Maybe we just go back to McDonald's the next day. I don't know. But
I sincerely doubt it. I think if we really do make contact with another civilization, it'll be like the last 10 minutes of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, those people's beautiful faces bathed in the light of the spaceship. It won't be quite like that because people won't be landing on Earth. But to know that we've made contact will be an earth-shaking, history-changing moment. It's got to be.
Let's go back again through pop culture and take another way to this, and that is for just pure coincidence. My family and I, locked in our home as we were watching Galaxy Quest the other day. I'm sure you've seen that movie. What's everything that we do, radio and television, goes out on the radio waves out into the void. And of course, the theory of that is that one of these extraterrestrials picks it up and comes and follows that, and comes and finds us. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, it is. And there is a raging argument about this. There are people like the great late Stephen Hawking who said we should keep our mouths shut because, the Klingons may catch an I Love Lucy and come here and take over. And then there are people.
We are Fenorks. We hate Lucille Ball. If we hear Lucille Ball one more time, we obliterate your planet.
On the other hand, they could look at I Love Lucy and say, this planet is not worth taking over.
Back this thing up and let's get out of here.
There are other people, though, who have gone beyond just believing it's a good idea, who actually, have made attempts. They've sent signals out. Fortunately, they weren't very powerful signals, but it's certainly possible. I mean, if you look at the history of radio, you got well over 100 years now that we've been sending these signals out from Earth without really intending to, contact anybody. That means it's out about 100 light years. That's a whole lot of star systems. They'd have to have a really good radio, much better than the coat hanger we had at KUCI. They'd have to have a really good radio and a really good antenna pointed right at us.
And they'd have to have a very high tolerance for Fibber McGee and Molly.
That's another one I could say. Don't open the door.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Well, it's just a good thing that even coat hangers didn't help with the original Innertube at KUCI, or else I think we would have aliens coming down saying, we've got to destroy this planet. We can't let it live anymore.
Well, I will tell you that as a kid, when my parents had a van with a CB radio, I went out a couple of times, sat in it, and asked the aliens to come down. And then I did it at KUCI one night on my show. I said, what are you afraid of? Come on. Why are you hiding out? Just drop on by. There's a parking lot right outside my window. Just come on in. We'll go get some chips and sit down.
I dare you. Come on. Bring it on.
That's it. I think I did dare them, and they didn't show up.
I am Fenork. Coward. Do you have ranch dressing?
Well, now, on the other hand, if they came down and Matt took them out to get a sloppy burger or something like that, we may have a whole new bunch of pals coming constantly asking for burgers.
That's right. Earth would just be one big McDonald's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Curbside service. What's the future for us? Seriously, what do all of the experts that you talk to? We're thinking about now trying to get ourselves in gear with the Space Force and other things, but getting to the moon, getting to Mars. Again, I have to come back to what besides just it's there is driving us to do these things.
Yeah, it's going to sound kind of cliche, or it may. But, the best person to ask about this would have been Carl Sagan, and he provided the answer many times over.
Billions and billions of times.
There was an ancestor of ours in Africa who said, "Gee, I wonder what's over that hill. Maybe they have better food." And climbed the hill and went over the other side, and there was no food at all, and he got eaten by a lion. And then 10 more people did it, and one of them actually found better food. And then he had some kids, and they had kids, and those kids decided, oh, we'll go a little bit farther north and see what's up there, see what they're up to, meet some Neanderthals. And it is in our nature to do this stuff, to explore, to find out, to learn about our environment. And that's reason enough for me. And it's a little bit close to, like you said, because it's there. But that's all right with me. My boss, Bill Nye the Science Guy, yes, he really is our CEO at the Planetary Society. He says, we want to answer the two big questions. Where do we come from, and are we alone? And the first of those, maybe we can answer just being here on Earth, but it's handy to be able to look around where life might be elsewhere, may have originated elsewhere. The second question, are we alone? We pretty much have to look out there to find out. And that's one reason. Now, Bill's friend, Neil deGrasse Tyson, he says there are only three reasons people have ever explored. One is for the greater glory of fill in the blank, God, the king, whatever. To make money, or to have a better ability to kill my neighbor, to improve my so-called defense. And he's probably right about that. That probably, I mean, why did we go to the moon with Apollo? There were lots of noble things said by JFK, but really it was about beating the Russians, the Soviets. Yeah, and so you got four good reasons there. If we find out some amazing things and do great science, and by the way, invent Tang, which did not come from space, along the way, but all kinds of other great stuff has come from space, spin-offs, then that's good enough for me.
Okay, Matt, let's say it's a beautiful night and you're at home by yourself and, nothing else is going on. You think, I'm going to go out and I'm going to look at the sky. So what are the first things that you look at? What do you look for? What are your favorite places? Give us an idea.
Well, here's the problem. I'm the world's worst astronomer. I've had a telescope since I was 10. I can still only find and name about two constellations, which is this. I'm admitting something that I'm embarrassed about. But if it's winter, it's always easy to look up and see Orion's belt and know that sometimes you can even kind of make it out. You're looking at Orion's nebula, where stars are being born as we speak, or they were, however many years ago that light started on its way to us. There are always great constellations to see. There are almost always at least one or two planets to see up there. And then, of course, there's the moon, which is always delightful to see, especially through binoculars, if you have some handy, and even better through a telescope. But and if you go online and you find out, go to one of the places where you can find out when the International Space Station might be passing overhead. It'll tell you whether it's going over your head and at what time that's going to happen. And you'll go out and see what appears to be a star go from one horizon to the other in, I don't know, something like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And that's an amazing thing to see because, you can think to yourself, my goodness, there are 6 of my fellow humans up there, or 3, depending on when you do this, who are actually living up there. And that there have been people living up there continuously for 20 years now. And vast numbers of other wonders. And there are lots of great apps and great books and great computer programs that can tell you what's in your night sky over your head where you live. I heartily recommend picking those up. The apps are particularly good because you can just hold your smartphone up to the sky and it will actually show you what's available in that part of the sky, including the constellations. And it's a great time to do this stuff.
If people wanted to know more about this, let's just start with the group that you work with. What's that website? How do people get a hold of that?
I'm so glad you asked. It's easy. You can Google Planetary Society or just go to planetary.org, planetary.org. And we have all kinds of great resources about space exploration and space development. NASA has tons and tons and tons of great stuff online. And so does the European Space Agency, for that matter. But NASA's done, I think, a lot of people don't agree with me, but I think NASA's done a pretty good job of public outreach and providing resources for for adults, for kids, and especially since we've all become shut-ins and not able to go beyond our backyard in some cases. They've really stepped up their game, and so has the Planetary Society. And of course, I hope people will go to planetary.org/radio and check out Planetary Radio as well.
That's right. You can hear Matt's dulcet tones uninterrupted by goofballs like John and I.
But this has been such fun.
Well, Matt, thanks for being with us today. Hopefully some people learned some interesting stuff.
Thank you, guys. I mean, Don, thanks to you, I've been able to be on some of those lovely pre-produced musical Innertube interludes you've done. But to be on with you guys live this way, live to tape, it's an honor, and I brings back great memories.
Well, John, we'll be back next week.
Yes, I think our next guest will be Carrie Rickey, longtime movie critic for places as august as The Village Voice and the Philadelphia Inquirer, where she and I got to be really good pals. And she'll be talking about what movies she's been watching for the first time or again during the long stay at home.
Now, if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can send us an email. Just send it to musicalinnertube@gmail.com. That's musicalinnertube, all one word, @gmail.com. You can also check out our website. This gets a little tricky. It's musicalinnertube.libsyn.com. Now, don't ask us why, but musical is spelled with two A's, MUSICAAL, Innertube. And Libsyn, which is our podcast provider, is spelled LIBSYN. So it's musical with two A's, Innertube @libsyn.com. You can also check us out on iTunes, Facebook, YouTube, and at Musical Innertube spelled regularly .blogspot.com.
And to all the extraterrestrial civilizations out there, here's looking up at you.
Thanks for listening to the Musical Innertube. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.